Okay, I have good news and I have bad news. The bad news is the video for this week is going to feature like very puffy, poofy hair. I don't know what's going on with my hair. It's a little bit poofy. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I'm going to try not to look at my video too much. But I need to sometimes just to make eye contact with the camera, you know? The good news is that, and if you've read my Patreon, you notice they're not doing construction today. It is a quiet Sunday, so I can record this with a little bit of natural light. In fact, I'm gonna pull back the curtain, literally. Boom. Natural light. Natural light. That means that the video will look better this week. You can always find the video on TikTok. Hey, welcome back to Wanderous. I am your host, Andrew Crusoe. And today we're gonna talk about Tihar. Lights, dances, and one of the reasons why Pokhara, Nepal, the second largest city in Nepal, is one of the coolest places to visit. Let's go explore. So I'm just going to say this at the top. Tihar is a 5-day celebration, a 5-day festival in Nepal. It's very similar to Diwali. Now, I'm still learning about this. I might get some details wrong. If I get some stuff wrong, please leave a comment. And, constructive comments are always welcome on this show. I'm on a learning journey, and I endeavor to understand the countries that I'm a guest in. Being a nomad, I'm kind of perpetually a guest, and I'm really honored by the people that help me understand what's going on. I'm really lucky to be able to travel and go where I go. So the short version about Tihar is it's a festival of light. It emphasizes the importance of animals, family ties, and divine blessings. Part of it is honoring the god Yama, and part of it is honoring the god Lakshmi, which is the god of wealth and prosperity. If you've read any of my books, you know that one of my characters is named Lakshmi, a very abundant woman. And it's a beautiful celebration. But both in Nepal and in India, one of the big features of Tihar, it's called Diwali in India. They're different festivals, but they're very similar. They put lights up everywhere. And when I saw this, there's a few things. There's a few cool things that they do. There's 3 things I'm going to cover. There are tons of lights, and if you're from the West, if you're from a Western country, it might remind you of Christmas, the style in which they put up these lights. LED lights now, which is good because LED takes 10 times less the electricity than the old type of lights, so that's more environmentally responsible. They also dance in the street. There are dances in the street that are very cool, and I will endeavor to put, I think one of my videos on TikTok, which has got over 30,000 views now, has a clip of some of the beautiful street dances that you will see if you go to Nepal in October. The date does shift around a bit, but it's usually sometime in October. You can always Google Tihar dates and the year you're interested in, because of course, like many of the events in that part of the world, it is connected to the lunar calendar. So it depends on what the moon's doing, how close they are to the full moon. And that, as we know, the moon does not have the same cycle as the sun, and the full moon is always moving around. And maybe someday we'll just have to change. We'll have to put rockets on the moon, slow it down, make it exactly. No, I'm just kidding. That would be really tough because the Earth's 365.25 or 0.245 days in a year. That's why we have to throw that leap day in. So getting those 2 calendars to work together would not be easy. But basically, Tihar is a beautiful festival of lights. The other thing they do, which I'm going to share tons of photos with the Patreon supporters of the art that they do on the sidewalk, they create these mandalas. I believe that's the best word for it. I might be wrong about that, but it's basically a circular meditative blessing of many designs. So I had just, last time on Wanderous, I had found a place to stay long-term. In the process of getting up to my beautiful lake view, $4 when adjusted to United States dollars, $4 a night with a shared kitchen, private bathroom, queen-size bed, basically third floor like balcony and a gorgeous view of Feva Lake, which is a big draw. It's a big draw for people who go to West Nepal. And you can you can rent a boat, and you can paddle, you can get a canoe, you can get all of these things. And I would get a canoe later with a friend, and it would be great. But today we're talking about Tihar. And I'm going to try to encapsulate some of the feeling of Tihar. So I was very happy. The timing worked out very well. And once I felt more settled and I was getting into the city, I was trying to understand the city. And of course, walking is my favorite way to explore a city. It's much more intimate, and especially walking around the lake and walking around that area, it's very walkable. It feels very safe. And along the lake, every single business I noticed, even a day or two before Tihar, but definitely starting on Tihar, would create these mandalas, and they were all circular for the most part. These bright magenta powders, this sort of like tika powder, and they were incredibly beautiful designs. They would use flower petals around, small little yellow petals. They would put these little candles around in portions and put offerings of banana sometimes. They would put a swastik, which I feel like I should talk about a swastik real quick, because if you're like me and you're from the West and you didn't necessarily have a great history teacher, you might go, hey, I've seen this symbol in Indiana Jones movies. Didn't the Nazis use that symbol? And the answer is kind of. The Nazis took these nasty Nazis. They took this symbol from India and Nepal, this symbol that has these 4 right angles, right? But the Nazis flipped it horizontally, and then they also rotated it 45 degrees to make it look more menacing, I guess. And they called it a swastika, right? You've probably heard this word. I'm trying to relay this as neutrally and like accurately as possible, because people have a lot of feelings about, in India and Nepal especially, swastika is a powerful symbol that when you look at the original version, not the thing that the Nazis changed, the original version is really interesting, and they often put dots in the negative space between the 4 arms. So you will see the swastik. It's just a swastik. It's a Sanskrit word. You will see it all over the place because it's a holy symbol. It's very, very, very old. It is sad. One of the things that struck me is it's quite sad that the racist Nazis took this symbol and really, like, I think a lot of people in the West have a kind of warped view of it. I mean, I did. I had a warped view of it because I'd never seen where it was actually from. I'd never seen the original non-horizontally flipped and non-rotated version that's 3,000 years old, that is a very positive blessing in these countries. So it's very funny. It's very funny when a group of people takes a symbol and uses it for their own, because it is powerful, and that's why they took it. You can read about this. Maybe I'll put it in the show notes. I don't really want to talk about Nazis. I don't want to get drawn down. I don't want to get dragged down with Nazi talk. It's a very negative topic, and I want to focus on Tihar. This show is not about Nazis, but it's related because this is something that came up for me where I was like, oh, wow, what? This is... But I didn't know. I had to learn. So one of the patterns that I found in Tihar on the ground, and there will be a photo for this, is a very cool swastik that has flower petals, and it's in a circle, and it's really colorful and rainbowy. There's also someone made the Nepali flag, which is a very cool flag. I don't know if you're familiar with the Nepali flag. It is the only flag in the world, at least recognized by United Nations, that is not a square or a rectangle. It is 2 triangles. It's the most unique flag in the world for a nation because of its shape. And we could talk about that more later, but it's a very unmissable, basically a triangle on top of a triangle, this red and white, striking flag. So someone had made that with the powder. It just very beautiful, and they would leave a line that would, basically they were inviting blessings from the deities, because I guess the deities use roads too. I probably should have read more about this. But when I ask about things like this, the locals often find it sort of challenging to describe. Not always, but sometimes, because they're trying to describe. Think about it. It would be like trying to describe your spirituality in a foreign language, right? Now, most people listening to this, okay, I'll just throw my own country under the bus. Most Americans listening to this probably not fluent in a second language because that's not a high priority in America. If you're from California, you might speak a second language, or if you're from New York, statistically those places or Florida, you're a little bit closer to the Caribbean, you probably do speak more than one language. But most of the United States, not super great at speaking more than one language. So maybe that's a hard thing to imagine, but it's not easy translating abstract spiritual concepts into a foreign language. Maybe I'll cut all this out, but just for what it's worth. Anyway, these mandalas in striking lotus patterns, incredible, and like these people have color intelligence too. Like they knew what they were doing. People who did this were everywhere, hundreds of them along the street, along the sidewalk. And in my exploration, I even would come across, one night I came across, they had laid out a green carpet covering part of the street. This is a big deal. This is a national big deal holiday. They'd cover half the street to make space for dancers that would, these two women, I have a photo for supporters as well, would do these enchanting dances to bless the city in celebration of Tihar. If you want to see some of these photos, I'm releasing 30 for this week. You can always go to, and you can just get this for 1 month too, and you'll get thousands of photos at this point, and you'll get over 25 hours of audiobook content narrated by yours truly. And you can always get all that stuff, all the background information, and if you just go to patreon.com/HelloCrusoe, that's HELLOCRUSOE, and that's really what keeps this podcast going. This podcast takes time and energy to make. The videos take time and energy to make. And I really appreciate everybody who just even supports, even if you don't go to the $10 level. So you get all the photos at $10 a month. You can cancel anytime. You can do it for 1 month, download all the stuff, and then leave. It's fine. I don't mind. But if you decide to join at $5, you also get updates occasionally. If you join at $20, you get behind-the-scenes podcast episodes of the show. I occasionally do more spicy episodes about my travels and release those to the higher tier. But 90% of these episodes, more than 90% at this point, are totally free because it raises awareness about my work. I've just finished, as a recording, not to make this too time sensitive, but last week I finished the first draft of my 8th book, and this one's a tropical sci-fi. It's going to be this part of a new series. It's a 2-book series, and it is tropical sci-fi, and there's an entire 10-day silent meditation course in the first book, and in the second book, it's more about AI and dreams, and it's got a really strong female hero, really strong male hero, very eccentric AI. It's going to be really, really fun, and yeah, so all this stuff is just connected. My travels inspire the books as well, even though they're science fiction. Anyway, I could ramble about the mandalas all day. I won't. I will just say that Pokhara is a good place to be for Tihar. Not only is it full of dances and celebrations, which people who support the show on Patreon will see 30 photos this week. Every Wednesday you get a bunch of photos and a lot of them are shot in RAW, and I post-process them and make them great. I also was discovering hidden little places inside of Pokhara while I was sort of settling in. One of the places I found was a place called the Movie Garden, which was this little movie house, not even a house, it was like an overhang, it was partly outside, where they would show movies on a pretty big screen, and it was this community thing. You could meet so many cool people there, and they did it. I believe they did it every night. They would do a film for not that much money, for like maybe $2 American, and the path up there though was really tricky. You had to sort of like go up the hill because Lakeside Pokhara is many of the hotels are sort of abutted up against this hill. So often behind your hotel is just a hill. There's a hill, not the hill that I would hike the next day. That would be the next episode. But there are hills that you really don't want to hike. They're way too steep. and they're not even that tall, but they're just steep. And you'll have these little properties just hidden in these little nooks and crannies sort of up against the back of the hill. And there are little passages and little shortcuts. And the movie house, in an attempt to make it a little bit easier to find, took these LED rope lights, which were apparently getting very popular because I saw them all over the place. They put this green rope light all around this tree. They were still pretty nice to the tree, but it was like curled around this tree, this bright green, verdant. One of my favorite photos actually that I shot that week, because it's just at night. It was just neon, gave the whole place such a mood, and it lit the small stone step pathway leading up into Movie Garden, which I do recommend you check out. And around this time, I started writing, actually, speaking of tropical sci-fi, around this time, I started writing a book that I was calling Mantra at the time. And I'm pretty sure when I release it, it may be out when you're listening to this, it'll be called The Kaleidoscopic Universe. Kaleidoscopic Universe is something I put a lot of work into. It's been through many drafts. And I wrote the first draft. I started writing the first draft of this book. It's the one that has the 10-day silent meditation retreat. The only sci-fi novel that I can, as far as I can find, the only sci-fi novel that has a 10-day silent meditation retreat inside of it, inspired by my experience doing a 10-day silent meditation retreat on the Big Island of Hawaii. I talk about that in 10,000 Hours in Paradise. I talk about that in my nonfiction book series, 10,000 Hours in Paradise, which is on the Patreon. See, it's all connected. It's a 3-part action memoir, and all the audiobooks for that are on Patreon. So I was in the middle of starting that. I'd been working on the outline for that in a while, and then just exploring and wandering into places. I wandered into a place that had a free concert. I found there's a little dance hall that I'll try to find the name of for the next episode. That's sort of south from it's still pretty close to Lakeside, but it's south side of the lake. And I realized that there's so many things to do, especially closer to the lake that you get. Not just the Gupteshwar cave, which is pretty fun and has the waterfall underneath, which we'll get to in further episodes. But also, there have just been a lot of investment, frankly, to build up things like, pubs, but concert halls, and really an abundance. There was kind of no shortage of interesting places to check out. So the people had come for a lot of reasons. They'd come to Pokhara. I also, of course, have some photos of the delicious thali meals that I was having with mixed vegetables. And another thing that was pretty interesting around this time is I was trying to tap into the local events. And there is a yoga studio sort of nearby. They would host events sometime. And I wandered into, I think it was a full moon circle that I only took one photo of because there's only one moment where it felt appropriate, because there's no one really there's 2 people blurry in the background. So I'm not doxing anyone, but there was this circular, it was kind of a kirtan, if you know what a kirtan is. We sort of sang together, and we're holding a really nice meditative space. I believe we meditated together. And these kind of events happen periodically as well, little by donation events. And yeah, so this episode's just me settling in and realizing that Pokhara is a very friendly town, a very dynamic town. You can find so much. I also happened to be there the last day of Tihar, and I'll try to include some videos in the show notes. But before I forget, show notes for these episodes are always below wherever you're listening to the show. So in YouTube, it's in the description. I put a lot of work into the show notes. I often link to videos that I shot around the event I'm talking about. I link to shorts or TikTok videos because I've posted a lot of those in the past. And I encourage you to check those out because they'll help, and those are always free. And it just so happened that Halloween fell the day after the last day of Tihar, day 5 of Tihar. And I was I wonder what Halloween's going to be like in Nepal. And because I don't expect, it's kind of a Western holiday. I didn't expect much. But a few of the places actually decorated things pretty well. I don't think I dressed. I didn't really have anything for a costume. I think I tried to. I don't think I wore anything particular. I think I just wore a nice collared shirt. But I wandered in to a couple restaurants and pubs that had really, a couple of them really gone all out, put the fake cobwebs and stuff and fake little plastic spiders, and just lit. One of them was lit all red. The whole hall was red. It was like a Stephen King scene. So it combined with the Tihar lights outside in a pretty interesting way. But I could tell this was something that only the foreigners were doing. There weren't that many people dressing up. You know, I don't think anybody went trick-or-treating per se. Maybe a couple. I didn't see anybody doing that. But it was the kind of thing where, oh, this is like a foreign holiday. And, you know, foreigners want to dress up and go to a pub or a restaurant and, you know, I just, you know, party. They can do that. But it wasn't like a huge to-do like it would be in Europe or America. But I was happy that, yeah, you know, like I got to see a different interpretation of Halloween. It was kind of just in certain bubbles. And some of the places, they really went all out. They really decorated quite well. And then I set my sights toward Serenkot, which is a hill. It's a hill not far from the lake. I was interested in this hill because it was relatively a short trek. It wasn't a trek that required a guide. It wasn't a trek that required staying overnight. And I talked to people who had gone to it, but it was going to be still a bit of a project. And I had no idea how incredible going to Serenkot would be. So we're going to talk about that next time because that deserves its own episode. Thank you so much for listening. This one I know is a little bit on the shorter side. Sometimes the episodes are a little bit on the shorter side. If you do have any questions about Tihar, or you have constructive criticism, or you want to educate me of something I'm missing, something I'm forgetting, I'm open to constructive comments. And we're really on the tip of the iceberg here with Nepal. There was a lot that happened in Nepal. I'm going to meet rhinos. I'm going to meet wild rhinos, which was a very special experience for me. Crocodiles, yeah, they exist in Nepal. I was pretty surprised by how much is in Nepal. It is an amazing country. I highly, highly recommend that you go. It is quite friendly. Just be sure to tell your bank you're going to be there. Otherwise, the ATM might not work, as we learned in my first Nepal episode. Because I think that was the problem. I mean, a couple of the companies weren't great, but NIMB, that works pretty well. That was a good ATM for me. That was a good bank for me, for what it's worth. But yes, thank you for listening, and I will see you next time. Once again, if you subscribe to the show, you will not miss any of the episodes coming up. It's a free way to support this show, and I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm so happy that they weren't cutting stone outside of my window today. I think they might be done. I'm really hoping that they're done. I'm really I went out there. I walked over there and I was like, hey, so I live right there. How many days? And I'm learning baby Bahasa is what I say. Berapa, how many? Hari, days. Hari is day. It's not a difficult language. Like berapa hari, kerja's work. Bet you didn't think you were going to get a accidental Indonesian lesson today. And they're like, oh, minggu. One week. Minggu is week. That was last week. Now, I know it can be difficult to estimate how long something like this is going to take. I have a lot of space for that. I am very much mentally prepared for utter cacophony tomorrow. But for today, they might be done, but I'm not. I have no expectations. But for today, I am grateful. I am very grateful that the only sound in the background are children and not a bandsaw. Andrew Crusoe signing out. Fare forward.